Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the TFIM show. I'm going to be speaking to Sophie Suri about how she's dealt with and coped with trauma alongside crippling OCD for a vast chunk of her life. And we're going to talk about not only her personal experiences, but how her work and her studying is helping other people who are dealing with some of the same things that she has done. It's a really interesting show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was way better than I ever anticipated. So have a listen, and if you like it, tell someone about it. While I've got your attention, massive shout out to Graham from @Graphics for Coaches, made my sexy logos, and if you ask him nicely, he will make your business look nice and sexy too. Strap yourselves in, get yourself sitting comfortably, and I hope you enjoy the show.
For the few people in attendance and the dozens who are listening all around the world, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from his spare bedroom in Norfolk, England, Mark Laws asks you to get ready to fight fucking Monday!
I attended this meeting, you consent to being recorded. I do.
Oh, there you go. I've got verbal consent as well.
You have, there we go. I'm used to doing research. You have to get consent first.
Oh, let me write that down. Get consent. Shit. Maybe I need to send a few texts out. Sophie, welcome to the TFIM show.
Hello, and welcome for having me. Welcome for having me. What the hell's that? Thank you for having me. I sound like I'm doing the interview. Okay, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's Sunday morning. Be kind.
It's not even 9. It's not even breakfast time Sunday morning.
Exactly. So thank you for having me is what I meant to say.
It is my pleasure. Right, before we get into the meaty stuff, I've got a quick fire round which is called the last minute. So I want you to imagine, I don't know, let's say hypothetically there's like a nuclear holocaust coming. I'm going to ask you 8 questions and I want to know what the last thing from each of those categories you would want to have or experience.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh my God, that's
ready?
like a test. Yeah. I was
It is like a test.
It's like,
it's
shit,
exactly
8 questions.
like a test. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, what would be your last meal?
Oh, I want to say melon. How ridiculous is that? Just like
melon?
I
That's
know.
Not a meal. I'm not having that.
I know. Meal. My last meal would be sushi.
Sushi. You can have a melon starter and then sushi.
And
I'll
then
give
sushi.
you that.
Yeah. Awesome.
What's your dessert gonna be?
I love frozen fruit. I'm really weird. I like eat frozen raspberries, frozen blueberries. So that'll be my dessert.
Yeah, perfect. What would be your last drink?
Whiskey.
Good girl. What would be the last movie that you'd watch?
Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
The last band or musician that you would want to listen to?
Oh God, I love Sia. Or
never heard of him, her, them.
Sia, or I would listen to. I love just like movie soundtracks, like Top Gun soundtrack or something like that.
Oh, classic. What would be the last book you would read?
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Mm-hmm. Last town or city you'd want to visit?
New York.
Last hobby that you would partake in?
Gym, lifting weights.
Nice. And who would be the last iconic person that you would want to hear from?
Does it matter if they've already died?
No.
Kobe Bryant. He really inspires me. Yeah, Kobe Bryant.
Cool, good choices. The book that you mentioned, what was the name of the book again?
It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It's I got it. I was in Newcastle I think I was in Waterston's there, and I just had this I just had to buy that book, and I read it in one night. I stayed up and just read the whole thing, and it's kind of like, it's all about like pushing your limits, and that to get where, like, to get to the peace that you want in life, you do have to go through the stuff that you maybe don't want to feel, and it's like how to kind of tolerate it, and how to like expand and live a fantastic life, and go through the bits that you think, I think normally we all close at a certain bit. You get to a bit and it's like, oh no, it's too painful, I can't go there. And this book's all about, actually, can you open to it? And I think when you learn to open to it and deal with the feelings, you open up to a whole new life. And that's when you start to expand and kind of really like grow into yourself, and push your limits. And that's why I like the film Limitless, because it's a film with Bradley Cooper. I saw it in 2009, I think it was, and I was learning about neuroplasticity and the power of the brain that it can change at the time. And I remember watching Limitless, and he takes a drug to do this, so I wouldn't take the drug. I'm not advocating doing drugs, but he takes this drug, I think it's called NZT or something, and it opens up all these areas of his brain, and suddenly he can learn really quick. He just kind of, it's like he has access to all these areas of his brain which are previously kind of shut down. And I think humans have got so much potential, and there's so much that we don't access, and there's so much that we don't use, and there's so much that we don't grow, kind of. And I think kind of, yeah, I love that perspective on life, because it always reminds me that I can change, and that the limits that I see now are not necessarily what my life's going to be like forever, and that I can grow, and that there's possibilities. So that's why I kind of like those. I think they really open your mindset up to a bigger life, to kind of why you're here.
Yeah. And how long ago did you buy and read the book?
About 4 years ago.
Okay, so when I come on to my next sort of question about who is Sophie Suri, like, it was after you were already working in the field that you're working, is that right?
Yes.
Cool. It's really interesting, because as you were talking there, it was almost echoing the exact thoughts and conversations I have with people when I'm working with them physically. Like, whether that is just somebody coming into the gym to lose weight, tone up, or whether it's somebody who wants to compete at a certain event or sport or activity, and they want to improve their performance. Because I find myself, and I've got zero sort of scientific evidence. It's very sort of hypothetical, but I genuinely think that people restrict their physical capabilities, almost like they put the brakes on. They hold themselves back, and they think that their limit is like here. And for those that aren't watching on YouTube, my hand is really low. And then, whereas in actual fact, their limit is probably up here. Like, and now my hand's really high. They and people sort of like they put these like invisible barriers in that they go, oh no, I couldn't run 10k. Whereas actually, if you ran behind them with a gun, they'd probably do a marathon like no problem. It's just that they've got the physical, they've set themselves these physical parameters that they think they're capable of. Whereas your work and your thinking is along the same lines, but looking at people mentally and psychologically, like how they have those psychological limits. And then I suppose as we go through the duration of this podcast, I think we'll then expand on how people maybe hold themselves in emotionally, and they kind of live within these little boxes.
Exactly.
Whereas actually there's shitloads of scope to expand physically, mentally, and emotionally.
So much. And I think kind of it's, as we'll come on to later on, I think like the one thing I don't want to do is look back at the end of my life, and kind of, if you were to meet the person who you were born to be, with all the like, kind of fulfilled all your potential that you had within you, if I was to meet that person, and I didn't measure up to them, I would be like, oh my God, I didn't use all the things I was given because I thought that I couldn't do this. I thought I
Mm.
couldn't do that. So I think I always want to push, I think it's learning how to tolerate the feelings as you're pushing your boundaries, and learning that your limits are not your limits forever. In some respects, in certain, I'm not saying it in everything, sometimes there are limits that are kind of, that are there for, for maybe certain conditions or something like that. But in a lot of things, we restrict ourselves. We play it small, because it's familiar, because we think that we want to please others. We want to kind of keep this front on. We don't want to see people to see us fall and crash. And I think part of pushing your limits is about being able to fall and crash and get back up.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the work of, like, Kobe and Michael Jordan. I've got his kind of his quote on my wall of, it's about failing over and over again and then getting back up. So I think we play small because we don't want to experience those bits, those feelings of like, oh my God, I'm rubbish at this, or oh my God, like I'll never do it, or this is so painful. But when we actually learn to go through that and experience it and develop the skills to allow ourselves to go through those bits, I think we do become limitless, because we go to another level, and with each level you gain more of your power back, and you're like, oh my God, I can do this. And then your confidence builds. And I think that's so important for so important for life, for everyone. I think we can all apply that to our lives.
Absolutely. I sort of, again, another conversation that I find myself having very often is about the importance that competitive sport has played in my life, both playing and working, to learn that. Because if every time you have a sports match, if every time you lost, you derailed yourself and you gave up and you quit and you sacked that sport off and you had to go and find another one, you wouldn't last longer than a few weeks. Even the greatest teams of all time in any sport you like, whether that's the All Blacks in rugby, or you look at, say, like massive dynasties in some of the American sports, like the Chicago Bulls of the 90s, Manchester United in the 90s, the Liverpools or the Nottingham Forests of the 60s, 70s, 80s, like they all lost. Even when they were at their best, they lost. They just won more than they lost. And when I worked in professional sport, there was like a saying that you never lose, you either win or you learn. And I was like, fuck me. Like, although this is sports for idiots who weren't clever enough to have proper jobs, like we didn't get like A's or anything like that. So because we were the thickos, but we were good at PE, we fell into sport. But actually, I think that's probably one of the most important things I've ever learned in my life, is that if you frame things as, oh, I've lost again, fucking this is rubbish, it's his fault, her fault, I'm useless, now I'm sad or depressed or nervous about trying again. But you'd like literally talking about putting those boundaries up and those limits, you live inside a tiny little box. Whereas if you can frame it as saying, right, we lost, but how can we learn something that makes us better next time? How can we improve and develop? Then you're on to sort of like it's impossible to lose. You either
I,
win or you learn.
I think that's kind of why I like kind of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. I mean, Kobe Bryant, I think, says that, there isn't really such a thing as failure. It's all learning and growing. And I think I've always been so scared of failure, always wanted to be perfect, always wanted to kind of like, oh my God, I can't get anything wrong. And that has limited my life hugely, because I haven't pushed into the bits where, it feels like crap. But I'm learning now to sort of learning that, yeah, failure feels like crap, but actually failure is my path to success, however I define that. If I can't go through those failures and can't allow myself to fail, on a daily basis, then I won't become the person that I want to be. So I think very much in culture nowadays, it's very much ingrained that, you have to get everything right, everything has to be perfect, and we have to be a certain way. And I think we need to address that failure is a good thing. Do you know?
Absolutely.
And
It's a crucial thing. It's like a
yes,
non-negotiable.
Oh, like I wouldn't, if I look in the way I grew up, I was so scared of failing that I kind of, I played small. And it's something that I'm aware is still kind of, in, I'm not saying I like failing. I say I appreciate it. I appreciate it for what it is. It's like I don't like doing certain things in the gym, but I appreciate them for what they give me. So I think we need to breed a culture where it's okay to make mistakes, but you have to learn. So it's not like a pass free for all kind of like, oh my God, go fail everything, It's kind of like you have to learn from those, and each little learning kind of does take you further. But the culture we live in very much dictates this perfection, and it's unattainable, and it makes us all live small because we're scared for someone to see us in our failure, when actually people connect more with you when you're in your failure. They're like, oh my God, I felt like that. Oh my God, you're human. And it gives them permission to fail. And as they fail, they realize the power in actual failure and how
Yeah.
to use it to their advantage.
100%, and that's the things when I mean that's kind of the whole point of this entire podcast, and the reason for the questions I'm asking people, and the sort of the rabbit holes that I want to go down with people, is because like I regret things. I wish I had done things differently. Like I have held myself back and I've fucked myself up and I've made stupid mistakes, and I've made some stupid mistakes repeatedly, and I've made some stupid mistakes that I've not learned from. But if you just scroll through Instagram for 20 minutes, everyone's perfect, everyone's happy, everyone's
Oh,
life is like some kind of
because
miracle,
that's
like
real life.
exactly. And I'm like, well, but if you actually are honest and like sort of admit, I don't know, inadequacies, insecurities, weaknesses, like fears, failures, if you sort of like acknowledge them, because I have them, and I if there's someone on the planet who can genuinely hold their hand up and claim to have none of them, fair enough. I probably won't believe them, but I
Yeah.
certainly won't fall out with them over it.
They haven't
But
got enough awareness. If that what they're saying, it's not the case. You're human, you will have them. They're just
yeah,
they're not being aware and admitting things.
yeah, there you go, like Boris or someone like that. Probably
Oh man, what's happening in the UK at the moment?
just another episode of the soap opera. Um, yeah. So what's this? We're probably on about 15-20 minutes for my 1 minute quick fire intro round.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
No,
I
don't
talk too
sorry.
much. So just
No,
tell me,
not at all.
just go like that. Just like cut it, Soph.
No, not at all.
I'll say shut the fuck up.
I want more. But let me ask you the first question, which is, who the hell is Sophie Suri?
So when you
What?
sent me kind of the interview, like, kind of an outline of what you might ask, I read that and I was like, oh, well, I get asked that question daily when I'm on meetings, introducing yourself. And it's like, hi, I'm Sophie Suri. I'm a researcher at Teesside University. I'm writing a book, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, that's kind of what I do. That isn't actually who I am. And to be honest with you, when I ask myself, who am I'm still very much finding out, throughout. It's been it's been traumatic through the years. Mum and dad have died, and I've got OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder. So a lot of my time has been spent in my head and kind of feeling really locked, and kind of just spending a lot of time obsessing and doing compulsions. And one thing I have realized is I don't really know who I am. Like, I've spent that much time on stuff that is not mattered, and kind of very much feel that I'm in, the past couple of years thinking, who am I? What do I actually like? What is, like, when you ask those questions at the start, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite movie? I would have really struggled to answer them 5 years ago. I would have been, do you know what? I don't know. I really don't know. What's your favourite this? And I would used to just make things up because I thought, well, people want me to have an answer. But in truth, I wouldn't have had an answer. I'd have been like, well, I've been in my head for so long, I don't know. And also kind of like like we talked about before, I'm a people pleaser, and kind of I thought, well, who do people want me to be? who kind of is Sophie Suri, and what am I meant to stand for? What kind of what should I be? What kind of person will the world like? And it's too hard to keep that up. It's a huge burden, and it stops me being actually me. And you're put on this planet to be unique, and there shouldn't be someone else like you. That there shouldn't. So I think, to answer who's Sophie Suri, I'm still very much finding out. I don't know. But it's interesting to find out the things, like who the person I am is at the core. I would say kindness is at my core. I would say kind of like I love helping other people, not because not because I want thanks or anything. Just there's something in me that just absolutely loves helping other people, kind of, like I said, push their limits and grow and help them fulfill their potential. So that's definitely a huge part of who I am, kind of, I think. But yeah, it's not been defined by the names that necessarily go, the titles or anything. I always used to think, if I get my PhD, if I get this, if I get that, that's not really me. That's just stuff I've done. So who am I as a person is a huge question that I'm enjoying discovering. I'm discovering lots of things about me that I'm like, oh my God, that is like, oh God, I didn't realize that. Oh my God, I do that. Oh, lots of things that I'm like, oh, but then again, there's no light without dark. So it's learning to love yourself and kind of love who Sophie Suri is. I was talking to someone yesterday, and it's such to actually love who you are, and to learn to accept who you are. You have to get to know who you are first. So it's a long journey, and this is kind of, I feel like I'm starting that kind of road now, which is good, because it's easier than trying to be something else.
Absolutely. And also, like, people might listen to this and they might go, "Oh, how would I answer that question? Who am I? Oh, I don't know. Oh my God, I don't know. Shit, panic. Like, there must be something wrong with me."
No,
It's fine. It's fine to not know who you are, or to have a rough idea, but to know that could change every single week.
you're constantly
Forever.
evolving. Yeah, and your perspectives change as you go through different experiences. So I think kind of you have like a core sense of who you are, and what kind of your values and things like that are. But I think being open to that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing and not being able to answer. If you said, "Who are you?" "Well, I'm a researcher, I do this," and end off. You'd be like, "Oh, okay, next question." And it isn't, it's like we're all so complex, and we'll never really know who we fully kind of are. I mean, I'd say we listen to our hearts, learn to listen to our hearts, and kind of follow our values, and be open to explore all the areas of yourself that you didn't know were there. Because then again, you don't put limits on yourself. If I suddenly define myself as XYZ, I've just put myself in a box. And I don't want it to be in a box. I want to be free. I want to be kind of constantly pushing and thinking, oh my God, like neuroplasticity, limitlessness is a huge part of my kind of like the way I look at life. So yeah, Sophie Suri is complex, in process, but kind.
She's a very kind work in progress.
Yes, that is a very good summary.
Yeah, it's a bit like me. I'm just not quite as kind. So in terms of what you do, and you mentioned there about losing your parents and about OCD, and I want to kind of go down those rabbit holes in a little bit. But in terms of what you do as a researcher, those two things, like what you've been through personally and how you now work professionally, and that element that you've mentioned a few times about, I just want to help people, I need to help people, I want to help people to sort of achieve the things that they're struggling to achieve. Could you just join the dots on all three of those in terms of specifically the area that you work in?
Yeah, so I started back in research. Well, I did my undergraduate degree in sport. So I love sport. I did my master's in sports science. but there's always been something in me, like I love research, I love finding things out, but my passion, like I said, has been in helping people. And then my own kind of, so I love research, my passion in helping people, and then my own lived experience of kind of trauma, losing mum and dad, and struggling with OCD. Kind of, they've all, I don't know, I think there's been a plan from the very start. I'll talk about this again later, but I do think we're very much guided, and very much, we're here for a reason. And when you realize what it is, everything kind of falls into place, and you learn to kind of listen to life, and follow it. I think an opportunity's come along 6 months ago for me to join the dots and do research, which I love doing, into something I'm very passionate about, helping other people. And it's in the field of, some of it is in OCD and in long-term health conditions. So they've all kind of really, like, serendipitously come round and joined together. And it's, I don't know, I always feel like I was made to do this. And it kind of, I'd say that's how they link together. But the research is something that I do love, because again, I love finding out new things, and I love pushing boundaries and things.
Cool. So in terms of your own OCD then, what are the sort of more common things that you've suffered with?
So with OCD,
or examples of how your OCD has manifested itself.
Yeah, so I think OCD is, it was OCD Awareness Week. I think the week before last, you probably saw me litter Instagram with lots of posts. But OCD is something that's, like, really, I think, misunderstood. I think people don't realise how the span of what it can affect. And it can be devastatingly affect people with, they can become obsessed with, like, contamination and things like that, and do compulsions to make sure things aren't contaminated. And that is a really devastating way OCD can manifest. But it can also manifest in any kind of thought, really, and you become fixated on it, and then you do compulsions to relieve the anxiety that the thought causes. So my OCD very much focused on, in 2009, on my health. I became very obsessed that there was something wrong with me, and to such a point that I got admitted into a psychiatric ward in 2009, and diagnosed with OCD. I was doing so many compulsions. I was Dr. Google was my best friend. If anyone's listening, don't Dr. Google it. Like, please don't Dr. Google it. I mean, look on an NHS site, but don't go down the rabbit holes. I went down the rabbit holes of doing research using Dr. Google on a symptom that I thought I had. And if you look far enough, there's always a paper on XYZ. So I would take the paper to a consultant, and then they're like, oh my God, who is it? What is she telling? Who is this girl? So it manifested very much in the health, and then kind of being very scared of, I suppose, I cause harm to someone. And that could be in any way. It could be, have I left something on at home? Have I dropped something on the floor and someone could fall? I call it Kettlegate. So I had these awful intrusive thoughts that I'd put, like, petrol or something really bad in the kettles at home, and I love cups of tea, so this was really hard. And that someone was going to drink it and it was going to, like, kill them, or they'd have to go to hospital. And so I threw loads of kettles out. I lived in a flat by myself at the time, and my brother would come round and he'd be like, new kettle? I'm like, yeah, new kettle. And they got shittier and shittier, because you can't keep affording. You had this really nice, like, glass kettle that lit up. It was amazing. And of course I had to clip the plug on that had to go, and just be like, oh, I had a room, like, just packed with kettles. And so they got to these really shitty little kettles. So it very much manifested like that. And I used to, I take medication for my OCD. So I used to be scared of dropping a tablet, and suppose I dropped it and a little kid gets it. So I used to, when I came, this used to take hours. I used to come into my flat and just kind of completely, everything that I had to be checked for tablets. As I left my flat, everything I had on me, whether it was a bag, and the bags with loads of pockets were a bloody nightmare. Coats, go through everything to make sure I didn't have a tablet that I'd maybe dropped on me in case a little kid got hold of it. and took it. And then, you know, the kid, in all the end of OCD, my OCD kind of thought it's that everyone dies. It's really pretty. So it kind of manifested like that. It manifested in, suppose I write something bad about someone in a piece of work I'm doing, and I write a lot, you know, with my work, with my writing my book. So this is again quite a big exposure. Writing my books, I'm scared. Suppose I accidentally wrote something bad about someone. Suppose I accidentally put all my passwords into a document and sent that to someone, and they get hold of my security information, and they get, you know, or kind of harm comes to someone. It's manifested in kind of that real being scared of causing harm. And yeah, I think in 2019 I just finished my PhD. So I literally threw myself across the finish line, you know, with so much help and support. The two acronyms I thought would kill me in that year would be OCD and PhD. So I got through the PhD and thought, I don't want to do any more. I've no more research. You know, OCD used to chase me down every kind of sentence. Have I written something bad? Have I written something wrong? Will this get published and something bad happens? Blah blah blah. And I took a job at the time. It was a Christmas temp job at Marks and Spencer's. So I go in for the interview, and I'm still struggling that time to, you know, with, you know, locking my house up, cooking, using stoves, things like that. And I go into the interview, and she said, you know, you're the first in the Christmas cohort. Which job do you want? You can be customer facing, or you can kind of be behind the scenes in store operations, looking after like the health and safety of the building. And of course, like health and safety, like locking it up at night, I couldn't even lock my own front door. But I wanted to appear cool. And she said, I said, like, which is the more fun job? And so she said, oh, well, you know, the store operations is challenging. You do a lot of things, have a lot of kind of responsibilities and things to, you know, look after, checking the bakery at nights off, all these different, you know, securing the whole building, all that stuff. And so I, again, trying to play it cool, said yes to that job. Got home, and my brother knows me so well. He was like, oh my God, what the hell have you done? And I was like, I have no idea. And he was like, you have to ring back and say, I can't, you know, I have to swap to the other job. And something in me, you know, this I'll talk about it later, but there's something I think we've all, when we listen to our hearts, I think we really are led. And something huge in me was like, no, you're in the right place. You need to do this to grow. You'll hate it, but you need to do it to grow. So I took the job, and I'm sat there first day in steel toe cap, shoes, and a big, you know, high vis jacket, thinking these are like signs of danger to me to start with. I'm shitting myself, and a couple of weeks in, and I'm struggling, and I'm trying to keep the front on as though everything's okay. I'm doing fine, but it becomes really hard. And I contact a therapist who I've heard a lot about his work, read his books. And so I met with him and online, because he's based in the States, and we use Marks and Spencer's as my training ground, my gym, to get mentally fit with my OCD. So, you know, going in there at 5 o'clock in the morning, the shift starts, I get up about 3:30 and psych myself up, because I knew that I was going to be challenged through all sorts that day. You know, the tasks, there might have been like 10 tasks I had to do. And things like doing like a date check. So you do a date check first thing on the morning, and in that you get allocated an area. So all the vegetables often was our area. So every piece of, like, every veg you see in that in the area, Marks and Spencer's, we have to check through it. So much respect for anyone working in retail. We have to check through the dates. And I always thought, have I left a piece on the floor? And you know, is an old lady going to trip and fall and, you know, break her neck on it? Have I not checked the right dates? Have I not locked doors? Blah blah blah. And it was a real challenge. And with my therapist, we developed a game plan. You know, he very much treats the treatment of OCD like a game. And so for me, that works with my kind of sport analogies. So I went in and I kind of had like a strategy. I had rules. I had kind of self-talk to get me through. And it really hurt. It was like being on, you know, the physical version of being on a treadmill when you're doing high intensity intervals. It really, really hurt, but kind of I learned to appreciate that hurt. I'm not going to say like it. I learned to appreciate it and the strength it gave me as I got through each one. I mean, there was a lot of anxiety. The amount of times I came home and thought, oh my God, I haven't locked it up properly. We're going to be burgled. I'm going to get in the shit, or something bad's going to happen. And I kind of, went through those and got mentally fit to start the job back in research. So it's not now that I don't have the thoughts. I do, and I still struggle, especially with my writing a book is kind of, I'm so scared of saying something wrong, and kind of writing something bad, but it's a constant exposure. And I know now from doing what I did at Marks is I do have the strength to deal with those, life's not going to get easier. I do have the strengths now to deal with those thoughts in a different way, and not do the compulsions. So OCD for me is very much all been about harm, but it can manifest in so many ways, and people can become obsessed. They're going to hurt their baby, they're going to hurt their loved ones. I would really kind of advise people to just look at the depth, and it can really affect any sort of thought where someone becomes obsessed and then has anxiety, then there's compulsions to relieve the anxiety, and of course compulsions work for a little bit, but then your brain wants more and more, like a drug, and you end up spending, I've spent days doing compulsions when I am not living my life. And that's why when you asked the question at the start, who is Sophie and what does she like doing, I would have really struggled, because I'm like, well, Sophie does compulsions all the time. So Sophie doesn't really know. Everyone else seems to be doing, my favorite book is this, my favorite shop is this. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm gonna die. So it's kind of, OCD is a very it's a devastating disorder. It's had me unable to work, and just stuck in a room at certain points. So it's had a huge impact.
I sort of like in my ignorance, like, I don't know, seeing TV programs that have probably been on in the past, and they look at OCD and they'll have like some housewife who has to clean the oven 14 times before she goes out for the day, or someone who has to lock the door, then unlock it and relock it 7 times before they can go to work, or some sort of like almost like a practical or physical tick, if you like, that they have to repeat a certain number of times. And I sort of like, I genuinely as well, I'm going off on a slight tangent here, but as you were talking, as I think I've probably got what would be a form of OCD, in terms of like every day of my life when I get dressed, I have to go left sock, left shoe, right shoe. That's it. Like, there's no other way. Like, is that a form of OCD? Like that sort of like practical.
So everyone, you're human. Everyone has obsessions and compulsions. OCD is when you have kind of so many obsessions, compulsions that they limit your functionality, and it becomes devastating and debilitating. So, like, people often say I'm a little bit OCD. No one's ever a little bit OCD. It's a really devastating illness, and kind of we all can have obsessions and compulsions, but it's when that spills into the fact that actually it's really hampering that person's ability to live. So there's a lot of awareness. So when people say, oh, I line all this up in the fridge, I'm like, yeah, but does it cause you distress? Do you spend, how long do you spend doing it? It's OCD. Like, if someone has got OCD and it's, you're diagnosed with it, people are spending hours doing compulsions, and it's taking them apart from so many things they love, from their family. I've lost so much time, like so much. I feel 10 years behind, because I've lost so much time to the OCD. But it is a very misunderstood kind of disorder, and it's something that in my research and kind of my advocate kind of work, it's explaining to people what OCD is and what it isn't, and that it can affect any sort of thoughts, You know, like I said, people who've just had a baby can think, oh my God, I'm going to hurt my baby. People might, you know, see a knife and think, oh my God, I might stab my loved one. And everyone has these kind of intrusive thoughts, but with OCD, it kind of sticks. And you can't just go, oh my God, that was a weird thought. Like, you'll have them all day long. With OCD, your weird thought gives you that like terror inside you. And suddenly it's like, oh shit. So you spend all day trying to think, well, you know, could I do this? And you start testing, you know, things like that, testing yourself and doing compulsions to make sure, well, I wouldn't really do that, and asking for reassurance. And a lot of OCD can happen just in your head. So it's not just like compulsions that you can see. With me, a huge part has been just mentally reviewing things, you know, going over and over in my head. As I think just after dad had died when we were 8 and mum got ill when we were 13, I wanted to keep the world safe and mum safe and all of us safe. So I started doing compulsions where I kept a list every day of anything that had felt like it was unsafe that day, that could go wrong. I kept it on, or that I'd had that feeling where I was meant to do something. You know, when you go in a room and think, oh my God, what did I come in here for? Anytime I had that kind of feeling, I assumed that I'd forgotten to do something important and that something bad was going to happen, like not turn something off or tell someone something important. So I used to keep this little list and I used to write in code on it. So it was on a post-it, and I used to keep it in my skirt pocket at school in my foul school uniform, which was green, really horrible. And I used to keep it in my pocket when I went out to play sport. I did a lot of sport at school. I used to wrap it in my inhaler, and so it was never away from me. And on there I'd write things, and so I could fit more on. It was all written in code of kind of like, oh my God, I was, you know, did I forget to do this today? Did I forget to do that? And when I got home on a night, it was a running joke. No one knew what it was, but I spent about 2 hours packing my school bag, and I was just sat on my bed going through this list, ruminating, well, nothing bad happened at that point. I'm sure nothing bad happened. And going through all the events of the day to make sure that everyone was safe, and that, yeah, that, you know, whatever I'd written on my list was ticked off. And that took a lot of time. Packing the school bag was no fun game for me.
Wow. So I suppose sort of then, in terms of like my habit, or like a preference of left sock, right sock, left shoe, right shoe, I've got to put my shoes and socks on anyway. So that's not derailing my entire life. It's just like a little sort of routine or a habit, sort of that sort of a little subliminal thing that I have at the start of the day. And my point was going to be that then with that practical element of what I'm doing is not then anywhere near as strong as the mental torture that you're putting yourself through, where it actually is massively affecting your day-to-day operations.
Yeah, I mean, like you like the example that you gave there, if some people do get obsessed with kind of things having to feel just right, so they can spend hours and getting dressed and sometimes not be able to get dressed because it takes that much, you know, it's that kind of, it causes that much anxiety. And that would then come into the form of, you know, get onto the, like, this could be diagnosable if it's taking that much of their time. They're doing compulsions, they're getting obsessive thoughts, and doing compulsions to kind of relieve the thoughts. Then it becomes OCD. When you're doing little quirks here and there and little things, you know, that wouldn't be OCD. So there's a big thing, you know, in the States and the UK and worldwide, trying to kind of highlight that OCD is a devastating disorder, and not kind of just a neat quirk, you know, like, oh, I do this, you know. So that's kind of a huge reason why I advocate, because to get the awareness, and also a lot of people don't realize that it can affect so many different themes. You know, OCD at the end of the day is all about compulsions, getting a thought, having anxiety, doing a compulsion to relieve the thought, thought, you know, horrible feeling, and then having to keep redoing them in this cycle to kind of keep your, you know, keep things okay and keep relief within yourself. And but it can affect any sort of theme. You know, if you just had a kid, like I said, have I hurt my child, or could I be a paedophile, or, you know, there are a lot of taboo subjects, a lot of sexual intrusive thoughts that people get, and there's there's some work done by, I think it's called Rose Cartwright, on kind of the sexual intrusive thoughts that she had. And you know, my very good friend Chrissy Hodges has a book out, and it's all about kind of, you know, we can have these thoughts that you wouldn't go and tell anyone, like, oh, by the way, I'm obsessing that I think I'm a paedophile, and so I'm kind of like doing all these checks. Well, I wouldn't really hurt anyone, or you might keep yourself away from children, but you're not likely to talk about those kind of themes with people. So that's when it can become very dark, and it's the getting the awareness out there so people go, I recognize that as OCD. Not, do you know, because you can lose your life to it because of an intrusive thought like that, so kind of devastating.
My next question was going to be along the lines of sort of like if there was a fork in the road, and you've talked about sort of like the serendipitous actions, or even like sliding doors moments, and like things could go either way. So if there is OCD that's building and building and building, and then someone goes left, which is ignoring it, keeping it very insular, not even acknowledging it, pretending it's not really there, and trying to sweep it under the carpet, compared to if they turn right, where they're open, they admit it to themselves or others, they get help, whether that's therapy or self-help from a credible source. Sort of like, how important is it at that T junction that people go one way or the other, or what are the ramifications if they go the wrong way?
I think it's there's so much support and so much, you know, can be done to help people live an amazing life with OCD. So much, you know, one of the key therapies is exposure and response prevention therapy. There's loads of things that you can read on OCD Action, International OCD Foundation, about you know how it's treated. There's medication as well, and it can make a massive difference to your life if someone doesn't take if someone isn't able to talk about it, or kind of keeps it kind of underground, or if it's not treated, it only gets worse. So you know, it's like that, the more you do it, the more you need to do it to get the same feeling, and you do it more, and you need more and more to get that, whatever the compulsion is. So it takes up more time of your day, causes more distress, and it can lead to people losing their lives. Do you know? Really, really can. And that's why I'm very lucky that I got diagnosed when I did. You know, there's a lot of people aren't diagnosed for years with OCD. You know, I started with it when I was 8, if I look back, but I got diagnosed at 24. But I'm lucky that it was recognised. If it's not recognised and people aren't given the appropriate treatment, it can end your life. It can cause a lot of family pain, because it's very much, it doesn't just affect you, you know, if you've got certain rituals, it affects your whole family, you know, just because you're in such distress, but then you might be kind of constantly asking for reassurance of family members. So it strains the relationships, or you might be asking them to do compulsions with you. It's very much a family disorder, so it can have a huge impact on the whole family, and can unfortunately lead to people losing their lives when there's treatment there. And if with the right awareness and recognition, your life can be changed. You know, mine has been. I'm so lucky it has, and that's why I'm here to tell the tale, and that's why I will advocate for it, not because I'm being like, oh my god, like, you know, trying to push it down everyone's throat. I'm just kind of like, if people aren't recognizing what this is, people can lose their life.
Very slippery slope, isn't it? And obviously at the moment, things like suicide prevention and calm and high profile incidents, like, or high profile awareness of other incidents where people have taken their own lives, and it's a very pressing matter. And I can see how easy it is for, say, someone like you to have been like labeled. Let's say if you went to school with a little shitbag like me, like you would have been the weirdo. Like, oh fucking hell, that's fucking weird kid in the other class. She's fucking weird. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and how the impact that can then have on relationships, whether that's social or romantic. Like if you get that label as a weird kid when you're 12, 13, that's probably not going to go away by the time you're 18, and then you become an adult. And how much has that affected you as you then you fly the nest and you go into other environments? You're like, oh, I'm weird. Like you might not be. You might just have like issues that can be resolved
that aren't your fault. You know,
Yeah.
you're quite naturally you're having anxiety about whatever thought you've got, you know, which can be any sort of thought really, and it's giving you huge anxiety. You're doing a compulsion to relieve it. People see the compulsion and think, oh my god, strange. And whereas how about people see it and they go, oh my god, are you struggling? This could be XYZ. You could literally turn someone's life around. A lot of my time has been spent covering my OCD. So much time, because I felt kind of like, I don't want people to think I'm weird, you know, but you know, that little list was hidden in my pocket. That little list where, you know, no one saw it. It was just me. And if I lost it, oh dear God. You know, so yeah, the awareness if people do like label people as weird and strange, and in their brain something's sticking. It's not their fault. Do you know? I don't choose this. They're not choosing that. They're being flooded with anxiety or horrible feelings because of thoughts that they're getting. Naturally trying to relieve them by doing compulsions. But it's just making the situation worse. So yeah, the awareness and people recognizing it, and instead saying weirdo, saying, how can I help?
Yeah. But there's another underlying current to that. So like the 15-year-old little shitbag Mark Laws, who would have probably picked up on any of your weird habits and would have screamed from the rooftops how weird they are, but then that would have only been because I was either oblivious or too emotionally immature to recognize my weird things. So to just kind of, rather than admitting the things that I've got, like my little devil on my shoulder that's like, well, I think you're a bit weird, Mark. Like, because you do all these things, we're like, right, I need to deflect that. No, I'm not weird. Sophie's weird. Look at her.
Yeah.
She does that fucking
So much
silly little thing.
easier to tell you what so much easier to say, oh, so and so's got this problem, than identify your own. And I think kind of, yeah, so much easier. But at the end of the day, if you don't work on your own problems, you never become the person you were born to be. And again, it's about those limits and that awareness. Yeah, you don't become the person you're born to be because you spent that long just, again, covering things up and not looking at the realities of your own life.
Absolutely. And you said, you had a line you said a few minutes ago about, yeah, I do these things and it's not my fault. There's like something in my head that's sticking, or whatever the phrase was that you used. And the cause of the OCD is that you haven't chosen to have it. We've spoken before at great length about traumatic experiences, and you mentioned again a few minutes ago your dad passed away when you were 8, quickly followed by your mum at 13. So like, am I being presumptuous to sort of join the dots together between those two massively traumatic events for a child to go through that have then caused the OCD? Or were there hints of OCD there before?
There's a huge kind of conversation going on about this as to how much is OCD linked to trauma. And my personal opinion is that I think I would always have had those tendencies. Do you know, they don't know what causes OCD. There's there might be genetic components, biological, there might be you know, kind of like, you know, more social, more like learned behaviors. There's lots of different theories. I don't think there's one thing that particularly causes it. I think if you're predisposed to OCD, your brain working in that kind of way, trauma, I think, can probably trigger it. So for me, at 8 years old, you know, I lose, well, me and my brother, we lost Dad. And I literally remember within weeks, I was touching door frames to feel safe. I was turning lights on and off in the house, looked like a disco. because I need to do it so many times, and you couldn't disturb me. It had to feel right, because then mum would be safe and everyone would be safe. I used to, on a night, my poor mum, I used to shout "I love you," I think a set amount of times every night before I went to bed. And if she disturbed me or anyone disturbed me in the middle of it, I had to start the whole routine again. So she's there, this single parent, like, oh my God, like every night there's me going, "I love you, mum, I love you, I love you," and this, and all these little routines. So yeah, I think it triggered the OCD. It doesn't mean because you've had trauma you'll have OCD. It doesn't mean because you've got OCD, it has to be triggered by trauma and things like that. But I think, yeah, there's something there. If you look at a lot of people, they'll often mention a trauma kind of in the background. But yeah, it's not the cause of it, but I think it can trigger it. And with me, if I look back, it looks very much like that was kind of it. I suddenly felt so unsafe, and that was my reaction.
It sounds like we're all predisposed to say like silly little things or quirks, like I've talked about with my socks and then my shoes or something like that, or it might be stepping a certain number of times on a paving slab as you walk along the road, or something like that, or odds and evens or whatever. We'll have all these little things that probably most people, if they're honest, have got something like some sort of little mental tick that they experience very often. But then maybe, I'm not trying to do the researchers' jobs for them, but then maybe like a huge traumatic emotional event can be then the catalyst to turn that little quirk into like OCD behavior, like a behavior that literally holds you back and just like derails your daily life.
Yeah, and it is a very controversial issue as to what causes what, which comes first. Does it cause this? And I'm not saying I know the answer. All I'm saying is, with my experience, I think it triggered the OCD, the trauma. Definitely kind of triggered that within me, which would have, again, I think already been there anyway. Just looking through kind of past family and things like that, I think there is kind of a genetic kind of link. But yeah, the trauma definitely has a huge impact on that.
I'll move on to question 2.
I was going to say, I think I've just taken all your time up on question 1. I told you I don't shut up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's whatever happens. Like
you'll have to cut it and put 2 episodes out.
No,
she talked too much.
If there's rabbit holes to go down, we'll go down them. And if people can't be asked to listen because it's too long, then they don't deserve to hear what's said. So it's all good. But question 2
yes
is, what is the meaning of life? So to you, what is the meaning of life? And then in brackets to that question, which again we have touched on slightly, why do some people struggle so much?
I think for me, the meaning of life is to to grow, to learn, and to become. I think we're all we have so much potential, and I think the meaning of our life is to fulfill that potential. I think we all have a reason for being on this earth. So definitely growth is a huge part of why we're here. But one thing that I really reflected on recently is that we're also here to live, to actually have fun, to actually enjoy the moments and and be in the moments. And I'm so guilty of not being in the moment so much, of not actually living my life, just going through motions. And that's something that I've really become aware of recently, and I'm like, I need to have more fun. So I think, growth is a huge part, yes, to become who I was born to be, with all the the attributes I was blessed with, but to live my life too, to enjoy it, to find out what it means to be a human being, to experience things. And another big part of it, I think, is we're here to serve, to help other people. We're not here just to be, it's all about me. I think we're very much here as to help each other. And I think that's one thing that worries me about the future. and the society we're in today is that for this human race to continue, we need to have that attitude of service and helping each other, and not it all being about us and about what do I do, who am I, what do I achieve, you know, because that's not the end game. It really, really isn't. So, you know, I think we all, if I was to instill things in people, it would be learn to live in the moments. You're a human, you can't do that all the time, you know. If you can do it once or twice a day, it's great. To really, you know, live in your body and not just stay in your head, and you know, experience things, to serve, to give back every day to people, to do something to help others, and not put yourself, or look after yourself well, but not put like me being the best ever at this as your goal in life, because it's not. And to grow, you know, I said like that, talking about limitlessness and fulfilling your potential. You know, if I met the person who I was born to be, you know, a day before I die, the person I'm born to be is shown to me, and I don't match up to her, I'm like, shit. So I want to grow, and that reminds me when I'm feeling crap and I'm like, oh my god, I hate this, and I swear a lot, and I constantly go, why the fuck do I have to go through this? But then I step back and think, well, maybe this is kind of a chance. Maybe this is something for me to grow through. I didn't choose it. I don't want it. But how can I see it? And I think kind of you said for the second part of the question, why do people struggle? And I think I struggle less. You know, I still struggle. I'm a human being, but I struggle less than I suppose I did, because it's how you look at life. You know, life, do you see it as this thing where it's like kind of, oh, why is this happening to me? Oh my god, like this is not fair. And you can have all that. I have all those bits as well. But then it's like having that ability to have that awareness to step back and go, right, what can I learn from this? What can it teach me? You know, losing mum and dad was shit, and it's had a huge impact on my life and my brother's life. You know, it's had some really long lasting effects, which I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it's also birthed a wisdom within me and my brother, that we couldn't have had without going through those kind of events. You know, I wish it's not the curriculum I would have chosen. I wouldn't have gone, you know, at 8, this is what I choose, this is what I want my modules to be in my life course. But they were. And I think if I can step back and think, right, kind of what can I learn from this? Who can I be? How can I grow? And kind of, I think often like to see where we are as the perfect place to learn. So when I went to Marks and Spencer's for that job, it was a complete, oh my god, no, I can't do that. But something deep within me, like my intuition was like, you're in the right place, because this is where you're going to grow, and this is where you're going to get strong. Yeah, you're going to hate it. Yeah, it's going to feel like shit, but this is where you're going to get strong. And I think if we can kind of view our life like that, how can I use this? How can I use this to push my limits, to grow into something? You know, the more we grow, the more we have to serve with. You know, if I grow, then like the reason I do what I'm doing and I'm writing my book and things is not to be an amazing person who writes a book. I think that's not, you know, that's not important at all. It's what growth have I learned that can help pull someone else along. You know, I think it's all about our learning, and you know, you have to pull everyone else along with you on the route. It's not about you, it's about all of you going forward together, because otherwise the human race is going to implode.
It's doing its best at the minute, isn't it? That's for sure.
Oh, it's scary.
So there was an element there where you touched on that. Again, I find myself saying quite often to people about finding comfort in discomfort. And that doesn't necessarily, in the context that I use it, it doesn't mean you should enjoy how shit things feel. What I mean is that by putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, like shit's gonna happen. Like we're gonna go through terrible things. Like, you're losing your parents like before like your teenage years is unfathomable. Somebody else's worst thing that's ever happened to everyone is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. It might not be anywhere near the same scale as what's happened to you or somebody else, but everyone will be affected massively by the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And if you always try to avoid discomfort, then when some discomfort comes along unexpected, you might not handle it as well as you could do. Going down the other route is like, if you learn to find comfort in discomfort, not to enjoy it or to want it, but just to be able to function and operate, and to be like honest with yourself, or to be able to kind of get yourself out of the shit sort of thing, then like surely you'll be in a stronger position emotionally moving forward, so that if something does happen tomorrow that's unexpected, that is a traumatic thing, like, yeah, you're not going to want it to happen, but if it does happen and you can't help it, maybe you're in a better position to kind of cope with it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think one of the key things that I always think, and I can't remember where I read it, and you know, my therapist used to say it to me all the time, is get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, if you can be comfortable in, you know, so much of life, if you're going to grow, it's going to be uncomfortable. And life in itself, there's so much in it that is uncomfortable. You know, there's so many like challenges that we all face as human beings, and we need to have that resilience, that ability to kind of like to learn to, right, I feel uncomfortable now and this is like shit, but I can handle it, you know. And that's what my therapist Reed Wilson always says for my OCD, is like, you can handle it. And it's building that confidence. Yeah, I can handle it. You know, I think my mum was very much kind of showed me, I mean, she didn't die when we were 13, so she had the brain tumor at 13, and she passed away about 7 years ago. But the one thing she showed me very much was that you can handle so much more than you think. You know, she really, like, she smiled every day. She had the biggest smile, could light like the whole sky. She had so much joy, and you would think that she wouldn't, because she'd had a brain tumor, she'd lost a husband, and yeah, I think there's so much to it, but yeah, she found kind of the joy in life where and the ability to be with those uncomfortable thoughts, and still find the joy. And I think what I'm learning is that the more I try and get rid of discomfort and push it away, the harder life gets. If I can kind of live my life, there's me and there's discomfort, and we're going together, and I accept you're here, I make space for you, I allow you to be there,
Yeah,
it means I go forward very, very quickly, because I'm not constantly trying to stop discomfort. I actually flow, you know. And I think it's like life in general, you know, those old cliches, there's, you know, no sun, the rainbows, there's no kind of like, you know, there's light and dark. I think it's so true. You have to really live in this life, be able to appreciate the light and dark as they coexist.
yeah, 100%. And to just look at like every single element of science and nature, like light and dark, hot and cold, like, I don't know, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. Like, if one of them was right and therefore you deleted the other one,
the
would
other
be
one won't
fucked.
exist.
Yeah, like literally the world as we know it would die in like probably days. Like, you can't physically cope. Like, we have to have opposing forces. And it's sort of like, it's the thing that's helped me massively. I've had all manner of issues that I've kind of self-helped, and I kind of, but when I used to bottle them up and ignore them and think it was everyone else's fault, and like not twig that I was the common denominator, then I had problems. When I sort of got into probably my 30s, where I then started to realize, like, hang on a minute, like, this thing here doesn't have to be everything, because it can't survive without this opposing thing. Just like the sun comes up, the sun comes down. Like, we need both. And it was when I started to sort of started to become a lot more aware and accepting of these completely opposing forces and then both being okay, and that I could still plod along in the middle with some good days and some shit days, and the highs are great, but I know that a low is going to come, and the lows are bad, but I know that a high is going to come. And I just kind of, I started to just give much less of a fuck about so many things, that all of a sudden, like, life has changed as I knew it. Because, like, okay, from the outside looking in, some people might think I'm ignorant about some stuff, or they might think I'm stupid for thinking some things. And I kind of like, 10 years ago that would have killed me. Now I'm sort of like, well, doesn't it really doesn't bother me, because I know what I think. And okay, sometimes it still does a little bit get to me, but I'm sort of, whereas it was like 100-0, now I'm much closer to like a real good 50-50 balance of just being accepting of those opposing forces, and you have to have them.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. Kind of, I think nature teaches us so much. Watch nature, look at what is in nature, and we can learn a lot. And like you say, they exist together, the light and the dark, the good and the bad. And I think my friend was once said to me, don't get too high in the highs and don't get too low in the lows, because it's all transient stuff, and everything goes up and down. That's just life. It fluctuates. And I think if we can allow, like, on a practical, if someone was thinking, oh my God, how can I like allow room for this? Even if you've never been allowing kind of the discomfort in your life, if you can allow maybe 2 or 3%, can you allow it a little bit more,
just a little bit more, yeah.
Until your tolerance becomes a lot higher. And when your tolerance is a lot higher, then you can live, because you're not going into things only when they feel good. You're going in, there's always a chance that something can go bad, but you hold back from it. Like I said with the failure thing, you hold back because you only want the good. Whereas if you can handle the bad that goes with the good on the way to the good, then you start to grow more, you start to push more, you go into more experiences. So I think that's so key, being able to have the right perspective on life. I think that's why struggle will always be there, but it's the way we see it. Have all the normal human outbursts. I have them all the time. This isn't fair, and I go through all these different emotions. But I do think at the end of the day, if you can sit back and look at the bigger picture of your life, like I always think, like, it's canvas. If you can, come back out of it and look, there's dark bits, and then there's light bits, but the dark bits won't be there without the light bits. And it's kind of thinking, right, how does this all fit together? And then again, trusting in that there's something something much bigger guiding us in this world. So trusting that and kind of thinking, right, well, maybe I am where I need to be. Maybe I do need to work on this at the moment, and some of the realities hurt, but some of the prizes for it, going through it, are phenomenal.
Yeah. So on that thing you just said there about there's something bigger guiding us, like, are you religious? Do you have like any religious sort of interests?
I wouldn't say I'm religious. I don't have like a particular faith or religion that I follow. I'd say I'm very spiritual, and kind of by that I mean I'm very aware that we're not here by ourselves. And I think kind of there was a moment in 2015, I think it was. So mum had just died, and I'd taken some time out for the PhD, and I was really struggling with OCD, some really bad thoughts that even to this day I struggle to talk about. And I was just, my routine was go to the gym, because I always go to the gym, and I used to go through town every day to get there. And this one day I'm walking past W.H. Smith's, which is, people don't know, bookstore in the UK, and kind of I had this massive, I was in a foul mood, like literally my face was like thunder, and I really couldn't see the point in being here. And I had this huge pull to go into Smith's, and I was like, I can't be arsed, like, why? And it was like a magnet, and I was like, oh my God, I just really can't be arsed with this. And it was so strong that I had to go in. And I went in, and I went straight to this book, and it was by a very well-renowned, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, spiritual teacher called Dr. Wayne Dyer. and I can't remember exactly what I read in it, but it sparked something in me that kind of opened up my consciousness to know that there is something bigger, and that actually was kind of like, Sophie, you're not alone. You know, you don't need to control everything so much. And I remember going home and just like learning all these things about like something bigger than me being in this world. And then you learn about it and you think, like, I need proof. And then lots of things started happening in life, which I was like, oh my God, just like sit there and go, what the fuck? You know, I'd when my mum died, I'd been having lots of these, again, like that pull that I felt to go into WH Smith's. I'd been having lots of these things come to me that I had to write down. These weren't my little lists. This was stuff that I had to write that was kind of like, it was guiding me. And I couldn't be asked to do it. I was like, really? You know, but I bought this little book and started to write things in it, and shitloads of stuff kept writing, and it didn't feel like it was me that was writing. It was really weird. And I've still got the little books now. And then in 2017, my auntie said, your uncle's got the papers that your dad was writing. And so as a little girl, I used to sit and watch my dad write on A4 paper at his desk with a blue Parker pen, and he had a little dictaphone because he was a doctor, so everything he wrote he then said onto the dictaphone. And my auntie said, do you know that those scripts, your uncle's got them? And in 2017 I got hold of them, and they said exactly what I've been writing for the past 3 or 4 years that had been coming to me. And I was like, what? And then lots of other weird things. So there's this one spiritual teacher I follow, and my brother will laugh because he's got a very different opinion. Well, not a different opinion. We have a lot of conversations about, you know, is there something greater than us? It's quite funny. And this spiritual teacher, Gabrielle Bernstein, and she said, choose a sign that that represents to you that something much bigger is out there speaking to you, and you'll see it when, you know, when the right things happen and things like that. And I was like, yeah, bollocks. So I chose a butterfly, and I was like, yeah. And this bloody butterfly kept showing up at all the places where I felt called to go. Again, that feeling like the WH Smiths going into the bookstore. And when I followed that part of me, that kind of intuition, every time I did, there was a butterfly there. In some form, I was given a butterfly, or there was a massive butterfly above the door. It couldn't have, like, it was so weird. And there's 101 things else that happened that I could, you know, spend ages talking about. So it's really funny now because everyone goes, it's a sign. Yes. So if I go, it's a sign, you know, it's a sign that I'm on the right path. And they're like, oh God. But there's so much that's happened within life that it's the one thing I do know for sure is that we are guided by something much, much bigger. You know, I'm not certain of anything else, but that I will say I'm certain on, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, if you start to sort of think about and explore like the size of the universe and how small and insignificant our planet is. I live near the coast. We don't have hardly any light pollution. So if I go out in the garden when the dog goes for a piss at night and I go for a piss with her, I sort of stand and look at the stars, and like I'm not intelligent enough to comprehend the magnitude of the sizes and the distances. But fuck me, if there's not something else out there or overlooking us, then like there's too much stuff outside of just our planet for there to be nothing. Like if we'd have spoken years ago about religion in particular, I would have said religion's bollocks. I'd have said the reason that religion is complete bollocks is because if one religion was right, then automatically that means that every other religion is wrong. So therefore, they're all bullshit. And don't talk to me about fucking snakes talking and like people eating apples and dying and all that bollocks. And like they're telling stories. People didn't even know how to write when the Bible, like 2,000 years ago. So it's just like Chinese whispers. The stories changed and changed and changed, and it's complete bollocks. Like, however, now, I think this kind of happened since like my brother-in-law died probably 18 months ago, during COVID, and he at the time had a 6-year-old 6-year-old son who's now 8, and 13-year-old stepson who's now 15, and obviously was married to my sister who was widowed at, I don't know how old she was, 36 or something like that. And I sort of, almost in an instant, I was like, religion, I was like, I get it. I was like, it doesn't matter if every single religion is complete bollocks. It doesn't matter if it's all made up, but it gives those people something that they believe in, and it gives them comfort that there is something, whether they believe there's an afterlife, or whether they believe when people die they go somewhere else, or whether they believe people, they come back as a butterfly and they look after us. Like, there's, playing devil's advocate, they probably don't, but what if they do? I like, and if I go down this path where I'm like, nah, religion's Sophie's a fucking idiot, butterflies everywhere.
We won't put her podcast
yeah,
on.
she is weird. There would have been butterflies anyway. She just wasn't looking for them. That's why she didn't see them. Has she not been into Wetherspoons? Every bird in Wetherspoons has got a butterfly tattooed on her ass. Like, they're just, if you look for it, of course you're going to see it. It's like if a red car, like if you all of a sudden you're looking for a red car, you go, oh my god, it must be a sign. Yeah, so
loads of people have said that, and I'm kind of like, there's been other things as well, and it's just
too much for you.
There's definitely, you know, like I say, I think there's something much bigger. I think the religion and the way people, I think we learn through stories, and that's why the stories, you know, we're like, oh my god, it's what's the meaning of that story. But I do think there's something, you know, I mean, there's a lot of science now, like there's people like Dr. Joe Dispenza and thing, you know, talking about there being something much bigger, and the kind of science of it, and like it's a debate me and my brother have all the time because we're twins. So I'm always like, oh my god. He's like, no, it's just science. And I'm like, it's not just science. And he's like, it's just science. And I'm like, no, kind of, there is something more. So it's interesting. It'll always be debated, I think, until you experience those things yourself and open yourself up to allow those kind of experiences in your life. You can quite easily be very skeptical of it. And I think just give it a go. Try and be more open to it, because I think as soon as you try, you realize that there is something more, and that's when you really gain your power, because you realize that you've got your power within yourself and the power that you're working with, and that's what creates the big movements in this life.
Absolutely. And sort of like, as much as I understand why people would have that kind of opinion that it's complete bollocks, and like all of those things are a placebo, like they would have happened anyway, you just weren't looking for them and didn't notice them. I get that, but at the same time, and I'm not going to become like a vicar or something, and or like a Buddhist monk. I'm not that far down the religion spectrum, but I kind of, I'm like, even if it is all complete bollocks, it doesn't matter if it gives that person some comfort and some guidance and it helps them. So therefore, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, whether there is something or there isn't, like, it doesn't matter. It's if that person like believes it and it gives them something to hang on to, then fucking brilliant. And that was like it, that sort of that came to me like very, very soon after Jamie died, which was sort of like when I'm very lucky. Both my parents are still alive, and like we've had my nan died 10 years ago, but she was like in her 70s and she smoked probably 80 fags a day for about 60 years. She started when she was about 7 years old or something. So it's not like it was unexpected, and she'd been ill for a lot of years. So we'd never really had any great trauma. But when a 31-year-old with young children, like who's very close family member, like that hit home really hard. And yeah, me being able to then accept that there's nothing wrong with people being religious, like they've got their religion, their beliefs, and there will be, it just gives them some sort of meaning or some sort of value. Like, I'm not religious, like I'm not at all, but I just get that actually it's fine to just accept that there might be something else way
Just be
bigger and
open, just that little bit of openness. Again,
yeah,
it's like the allowing, allowing the discomfort, allowing, well, maybe, that there is something kind of else. And I think, if anything, say if it was all bollocks, well, if it's helping that person grow and
doesn't
helping that
matter.
person become a better mother, a better father, a better person in general, and by default that will inspire other people to become better, because you live what you live what you learn what you live. You live what you learn, I think that's what I'm going to say. And kind of, if people following and around that person will be affected by their growth, by the kind of better person that they are, and that person will be more onto fulfilling their potential, because they'll feel supported in going through the discomfort that you need to get to be, to really push your limits and become everything you're meant to be. So it creates a ripple effect as you pull everyone else along as you go, as they kind of watch you be inspired, which is like inspired as in spirit. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's
Yeah.
kind of, however it serves, however you see it, it does all, at the end of the day, it pushes us forwards, and it pushes us into be bigger people, and that's what life's about.
Yeah, especially when the alternative is to hold it in, to hold yourself back, to resent other people for thinking or liking a thing that's different to what you think or what you like, and you just go around in this never-ending spiral of like animosity and hatred and angst and like
And it
completely
only
fucking
affects you, really. It affects
yeah.
you, and it's kind of like, well,
What's the
it
point?
affects your energy, and then like you're going to get nowhere. You're literally
Yeah.
just going to keep on spiraling. And also respect each other's beliefs.
Mm.
Everyone in this world wants to be right, have the right answer, and be the one who, oh my god, I was right, you were wrong. And it's like, for God's sake, do we, like, some things there are right and wrong, so a lot of things, but when people have got certain beliefs, I think, talk about them, but don't diss someone else's, unless they're harmful. Kind of respect other people. They're different to you, they're allowed to have a different opinion. Allow them to have it. And I think that would be so many less arguments and so much less hate in the world if people stop trying to be bloody right. Sometimes there isn't one right.
Yeah.
Stop trying to make your way the right way.
That's another thing that again in the last kind of 10 years, something that I used to be terrible at, I'm still not perfect at, but I'm aware of it and I'm trying to improve it as much, is that like in this situation, what have I done wrong? Like slash what could I have then done better? What could have I improved? How could I have been more effective? Rather than the old me would have been like, well, I was right, you were wrong, therefore it's your fault. Like, and I'm like, actually, hang on a minute, what about if I take that exact same scenario, and rather than me just automatically being right and you being wrong, what if I think about what I could have done that might have sparked whatever it is that's happened? What could I have done differently that would have got a better response? And that comes back to the sporting thing. Is like let's say if you in sport you have a plan. Like I play rugby, say right, this part of the game, this is our plan. This is what move we're going to do. Well, the other team don't want to just fucking let you do your fancy move and score. Like when you do it in training unopposed and it all looks sexy and it works every time against nobody, well, there's no one there trying to fucking stop you. Then the opposition's job is to fuck it up and to stop you being able to do what you want to do. And if every time you were like, oh, well, that was plan A, plan A hasn't worked, we all better fucking quit rugby. They're like, no, you need a plan B, a plan C, plan D, plan E. And in every single scenario, something is going to go wrong and you need to be able to sort of try, if possible, to get the best out of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's such an awesome way of putting it. It's kind of, when we practice things like, when I practice things at home and think, oh, it'll go brilliant, this, and it feels all smooth. And you go into real life and it's a shit show, and you're like, oh my god, and it's like you have to learn to deal with it. And that's why I think kind of, if you look at the top competitors in any sport, they're the ones who can handle the, you're delayed by so many hours getting on court, this went wrong, that went wrong, you had to check, it's been able to handle. It's not about being the best player necessarily at the end of the day. It's, can you handle and be flexible and adaptive? And I think kind of it's a huge life lesson. Can you be flexible? Because life, like, you can plan it all. My mum used to always say to me, she had it all planned out. She said, 2 kids, twins, girl, boy, mum and dad, and look, she always, and I used to make all these huge plans. Oh my God, this is going to happen, I'm going to be like this. And my mum used to say, hold them loosely. She said, I'm not saying don't have dreams, have aspirations, brilliant. She said, but hold them loosely, because life can change. And I think she used to say, like a swish of a horse's tail or something. And it can change that quick. And I think we need to be flexible for that, and not rigid and stiff and kind of, this is how it must be, controlled. And I think it's hard to have that flexibility and to learn that mindset. And again, it's about the way we live our lives. Why do some people struggle, some people don't? It's the ones that can adapt and be like, right, this happened, how can we adapt, how can we change? They're the ones that kind of go forward.
Absolutely. On that note, that brings us pretty seamlessly into question 3. Now, question 3 is, how do you want to be remembered? And it's also attached to question 3 is the first bit of your homework, which is a 70 character line, or 70 characters of text that you would put on your headstone tomorrow. Not tomorrow, today, now. So go with the headstone first. Read me out your headstone text.
So headstone, I wrote these things like, I've come up with something very short in the end, but I wrote these things kind of like, I would want to be remembered as someone who kind of, pushed all her limits and played all out in life, and and took everyone to their greatest heights. Like, that's what I'd want to remember. But then I thought, if someone's reading my headstone, I want them to learn something. I want to give them a message. So by me putting that on, it sounds very pretty about me, like, oh my God, yay, hero. I'm like, well, screw that shit. I would put something on that it's something that, again, that great spiritual teacher, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he said, there's a quote, and this is what I'd write on my headstone: don't die with the music still inside of you. And that's what I put on my headstone. And because what he was saying was, don't live your life without living it, and kind of die with everything still in the tank. You're all here with a certain message to give, with a certain purpose. I really do believe that at the bottom of my heart. And that would be what I'd want people to, you go around the graveyard or wherever it is. I wouldn't want you to think of me as like an amazing person. I'd want that to trigger you to then think, shit, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Shit.
Like kids walking through a gravestone, they're like, look, mummy, this one says she didn't die with the music inside of her. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well,
and I think something
about it.
like that.
Let's deconstruct it. What does it mean? Like, what message can you take from it? It means whatever it wants to mean to you, but it's about not keeping everything in, not fulfilling your potential. It's about not ever having pushed boundaries to sort of see what it is that's out there. You could write a book that would probably be 3 inches thick that would follow on from that line.
Yeah, I just think kind of it's not about me at the end of the day. And I think it's really important to get myself out the way, and not I don't want someone to look at my gravestone and like hero worship me at all. I'd hate to be famous, but what I'd want someone to do is take a message from my life. And if I had to say something to them, that would be it. Don't die with the music. Don't die with whatever you were born to do in this life still inside of you, because that's wasted potential. So that's what I'll be written.
But it's beautiful stuff. And when I had a job, I used to work for a guy, a strength and conditioning guy, Brendan Chaplin, and he had a line that I loved so much, and it was ready, fire, aim. And sort of like people would look at it, be like, oh, there's a typo on there. I think it should say ready, aim, fire. I'm like, No, jackass, fucking clever dick. It's like, if you wait for the time to be absolutely perfect to fire, like if you've taken so long getting ready and preparing and aiming, and now you're ready to fire, like shit could have changed. Like there's like the pitch has changed. It's all different. Everyone's moved. Like it moved on. You took too long. The time will never be perfect for that thing that you're waiting to do at this perfect mythical time, and you'll just end up going around in circles. He's like, no, ready, fire, fucking do it.
Love that.
And
I'm going to write that down. I love
and
that.
then worry about aiming afterwards. Like once you're doing it, you can fine tune it and you can tweak it and you can perfect it, but it's fucking ready, fire, aim.
I've been waiting that's like in my life, I've waited so long to be perfect at something before I move forward, and all it's done is keep me in a box.
Yeah.
And my therapist for OCD, Reed Wilson, said, you know, go before you're ready. Go before you're ready. So I think that's brilliant advice, and that'd be fantastic to have on a gravestone as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it ties in with stuff we were talking about earlier as well, about then what you learn from that by just doing it and then figuring it out as you're going along. That then teaches you to be comfortable in discomfort. It teaches you to be able to drop yourself in the shit, drop yourself in the deep end, and to find a way to tweak and change and evolve and improve and to make something better. Whereas if you spent all that time being like, right, here's this textbook perfect way of me doing this thing, then as we've said numerous times, life doesn't work like
You're
that. Like there's
losing
going to
your
be,
life. You've lost so much time. I've lost so much time in my life.
yeah,
It's one of my big regrets is I've lost so much time to trying to be ready, of trying to be prepared. When actually I was never going to be fully ready. I was never going to be fully prepared, and I've missed opportunities. I've missed key opportunities, which now I'm like, I kick myself. But then I realised that actually, what can I learn from that? And now, you know, my attitude going forward now is that I do go before I'm ready. Just before I feel
yeah,
ready, I go. If I'm going to do a presentation, going to do a talk, whatever it is, I always make sure there's something in there. I'm like, no, like just go. And then that also makes me trust, makes me have faith. So I was doing a talk the other week in London, and I had notes, and then I thought, oh, but I don't remember that bit. And I just thought, fuck it, just go. So I left them on the chair and went up and spoke. And it's practicing that faith, and all the right
yeah,
stuff came out, you know. So
yeah.
there's lessons in that, definitely.
I was going to say, how many times when you have that approach, how many times do things ever really go so fucking badly that you become like a laughing stock? Like they don't.
They
They
don't.
they might not go as perfectly as you would have wanted them to, but very often, like especially something like that, doing a presentation or talking, because that's something where speaking in public, speaking in front of a large audience, that's a thing that stresses a lot of people out, and it's a thing that a lot of people avoid doing for obvious reasons, because it can be a difficult situation to be in, to find yourself in. But it's like if you know what you're talking about and if you know what you want to say, I often find like if you're trying to bullshit or you're trying to like hoodwink people into thinking something about you that's not genuine, then you're on thin ice. But
Yeah.
like if you know what you're talking about to a certain degree, and if you fucking trust yourself, and if you've got enough experience of being dropped either voluntarily or involuntarily in the shit and getting yourself out of that position like in a positive way, then you just fucking do it. It's a very, very, very rarely is it going to be as bad as you think it might be.
No, and do you know what? Most often it goes better. And
Yeah,
often I find it goes better because I'm not trying to control. And when I'm not trying to control, I'm letting something, we talked about that bigger force, I'm letting something else bigger work with me and having faith, you know, that I'm kind of co-creating in this life with a bigger force. So yeah, I'd say it definitely, it more than often goes better than you would think.
absolutely. Just do it. That's like I think I might write that down. It sounds like a good slogan. Company
That's
should
in my
use that.
book. So the a very, very good family member, they treat me as though I'm their own. Like, you know, they treat me like I'm their daughter, so I call them family. And I got a t-shirt for him. He's from Sunderland, and I got a t-shirt for him for Christmas saying, "Just do it, man. Just do it, man." And that's a kind of saying that we all have now, is just do it.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of, you know, just do it. And it is, because at the end of the day, you'll learn while you're doing it, rather than you might never have the chance to do it again. You know, so I just think, yeah, again, it's that approach to life. How do you live it?
On my headstone, I might just put "just did it."
Yeah, that's all you need. A little Nike swoosh. There'll be like all these headstones, you know, this person was this person was that. Then there'll be yours and mine. Just did it. Just didn't die with the music inside of it. They'll be like, oh God, what happened to those two?
We went against the grain, broke the mold. Question 4, which you've just sort of pretty much answered, but there might be more you want to add in there. Question 4 is, what do you regret? And I've changed question 4. Question 4 used to be, do you regret anything, or is there anything that you regret? But that left it too open-ended for people to say, nope, I don't regret a
No
thing.
regrets in this life.
I would do it all exactly the same. So
Oh God, no.
I've changed it to avoid that, to what do you regret? And you answered the question there a minute ago with you regret how much time you've wasted by either going around in circles, waiting for the time to be right, or I assume there's elements with like the amount of hours, days, weeks you've lost with your OCD that
Oh God,
could have been time more effectively spent enjoying stuff, living life, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But is there anything else on the list that you haven't mentioned that you do regret?
I think there's one thing which kind of relates to everything you've just mentioned, and it's something that I don't tell it to be a woe is me story. I tell it as a lesson. And it's kind of, when my mum was dying, she died at home, so she was home for the final 3 weeks, and we had hospice at home, and you know, I was there all the time, physically. What I do regret is that I was so controlling in that time. I was so full of obsessions and compulsions. I was so trying to spend lots of time doing my work, that I missed moments that I will never get back. And the kind of the key thing there for me is that made me realize that I was missing moments. It was this one, I think it was a morning, and we had like a ward bed at home, and there were like machines everywhere. There were syringe drivers and all sorts. But I thought, I want to get in the bed with mum. So I hiked myself up, and I managed to like get in, and I pull the side up so I can like snuggle in, and that I'm kind of like barrier, so there's no way I'm getting out. And I put my head down on her chest, and she couldn't move one half of her body, but the part that she could, she stroked my head, and kind of and I remember she kissed my head, and I've never felt more safe in my life. And I just breathed in that moment. It was probably one of the only moments I so wish I'd breathed in more. And that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is everything. This is absolutely everything. And I can close my eyes now and go back to that moment, and it gives my whole body like so much comfort and warmth. And that, you know, when I look back, I'm like, I miss so many of those moments because I was too stuck in my head. I don't blame myself for it, because I was trying to cope. You know, I was trying to cope and trying to keep things controlled and okay, when actually life was falling to pieces. So I don't blame myself, but I tell that story because I think it reminds me now, and you know, I hope it reminds people to stop and breathe in the moments, to stop and to kind of, they last forever, but you have to be there for them to last forever. And you know, that's a beautiful moment that I'll never forget the rest of my life. But there were so many that I missed, and I think that's my biggest regret. When I saw that question, that was the first thing that came to mind. Was, it's a huge regret of mine, and I'm like, oh my God, I could have had so much more time. I'm like, I didn't say bye properly because I was trying to say bye how I thought I should say bye, and trying to say the right things. I wasn't speaking from my heart. And that's kind of, learning to savor the moments, and to to develop the tools that allow you in those moments to recognize, you know, kind of what you normally do, like dissociate or, you know, go and try and control something. So it gives you the chance to, to be present, because that's everything. That really is everything.
Do you think then, this is an unanswerable question, but is there any solace in the fact that had you have had that moment more often, would it stand out? Would you be able to feel it and experience it so much now when you look back on it? Like, again, you probably would, but what if you couldn't? Like, what if you had had that every day for years on end? Would you have appreciated as much the way that you look at it now? Would it be so special?
No, so I haven't looked at it that way, but that's because it stands out so much in contrast, like comparison to how I was the rest of the time. It just reminds me now, and recently I've just been thinking, especially with, I know you're going to come on to next, not preempting you, but the letter you asked us to write for this podcast, and I wrote it to my 47-year-old self, not 48 yet, because I'm still 37, so I wrote it to myself 10 years ahead. And one of the things that that I'll come on to is that I say is that to breathe in the moments more. So that was a huge lesson for me. I look back, I'm like, damn, I missed all them. But like you say, it stands out because it was the light in sort of the dark. But it's a lesson, and it's a lesson that I always try and tell people, because you can so easily get lost in your own head and trying to keep everything okay, when actually you're missing out on key moments which hurt but have got so much power and so much connection, like raw connection within them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and that's just sort of, not me telling you how to live your life at all, but it's sort of like, that's an insight into the way that I try to frame things in my head, like regrets. We've all got regrets. If we keep going over how much we regret those things, they then fuck up the future. Like, everything from this second previously, it's never going to change or be any different. So therefore, like, with the things that I regret them, but I also look at them and go, okay, I regret doing that may have upset that person, or that thing that I did. I do regret doing it, but if it hadn't have happened, would I have kind of learned to see things the way I see them now? Would I be in the situation I am now? Would I be less happy or less content than I am now if that thing hadn't happened? And that's the way. That doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge, or I don't appreciate that the things I regret could have affected other people, but it means that I try not to then let them fucking destroy my future as well.
You take the lesson and you move again. But don't let your past, that's no regret, letting things that you do in the past kind of ruin tomorrow, things you can't change. You learn, you move, because it's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. So right, here we go then, the big finale.
I have to write this down because I won't remember it.
But that's fine. The letter. So if you read the letter first, and then we'll touch on the things that you said to me before we started recording, after you've done the letter.
Cool. So this is to my 47-year-old self. Oh my God, that's like 10 years time. Oh my God, scary. I'm nearly 50 then. Oh shit, I'm already bricking it about turning 40. But hey ho. So it says, hey old girl. Okay, I want to know, did you get Botox? Or did the face yoga work? I really hope face yoga won. But more importantly, I hope you found the comfort in your own skin that you always craved. I hope you were so happy being you that it seems ridiculous to even consider being anything else. And did that damn book ever get written? I really hope it's out there to help others. I pray you are walking every word of what you wrote. I pray you embody more than ever what it means to live with faith, to follow your heart and trust in your life path no matter what. I hope you've used every challenge, the heartaches and the hard times to push through your limits and grow into the strong and powerful woman you were always born to be. And perhaps more than anything else, I pray that you learn to savor the moments in your life more, to stop and seek joy along the way. I pray with all my heart, Soph, that you finally feel free. To me.
Beautiful. I sort of what I like that you're very similar to me in that you can't be deadly serious without also adding in a bit of sarcasm or humor or piss take somewhere. Like I don't know whether it's a defense mechanism or what, but I'm exactly the same. But I think you had a very good balance of like funniness and seriousness in there.
I think you've got to kind of, Mum always used to say this, you've got to laugh. You know, I know it was very dark in the last three weeks that she died, but we had some big laughs at the same time, you know. So again, them at some of the other moments that stood out, we laughed. And I think life can be so dark and there are big lessons for us to learn. But I think one of the lessons is to have fun along the way. To have, you know, it's okay to have those, you know, once you process things, to have those jokes, to, you know, me and my brother have loads between us now, which only we sort of get. And it's about learning to have a lightness about life, not such a serious, you know, I'm such a serious person. And it's something that I say in the letter, I want to have more fun. I can be very serious. So it's about bringing that lightness back to it as well. I think that's important. And also I don't know, I just like to laugh. And it's quite funny because I've actually got a face yoga book. So that's why I'm laughing. And that's when I wrote this, I saw that next to me because I was like, my brother's quite happy with the aging process. He's like, yeah, I'm not keen on this bit or that bit, but hey ho. And he's like a minute older, and I'm there going, oh my God, is there more grey? Oh my God, like, do you think I'm getting lines? And like I said the other day, can you tell I've been doing face yoga? He was like, for fuck's sake. I was like, do you think I need Botox? Like, do you think I need these bits doing? Do I need that bit doing? Oh my God, the line's there. And again, that's like me learning to love myself and stop trying to be this perfect person. That's a journey, but that's why the yoga came into it, because I was sat writing that and I saw that and I thought, yeah, I wouldn't have had Botox back then.
maybe not, who
who knows,
but by then there might be, you could probably have like a, I don't know, face transplant or something. They're just like iron out like a brand new one, put a new one on.
Do you know what, I might have researched something to reverse aging,
yeah,
like hugely by then.
Or you might have learned that it doesn't fucking matter if all of the laughter and all of the fun that you want to start having gives you like loads of lines and creases.
It doesn't matter because I'd rather be happy, you know. I spent so long trying to be who I think I should be, to look how I think I should look. And very recently I'm really coming to the thing of kind of, I just want to be happy being me. And that's why I said I want to feel comfortable in my own skin. I've always felt so uncomfortable in my own skin, always wanted to be someone else and hated myself. So yeah, finding that comfort in my own skin and learning to just kind of find that peace and what really matters, because your Instagram doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And I'll go, she had the best Instagram ever. And they'll be like, it really doesn't matter. You know, and it's, I try and think now, why am I posting things? Like, what's the why behind I'm doing this?
Yeah. Or you could put that on your headstone with like a little QR code to your account, like the best Instagram account ever. And people walk by, they scan it, they go and have a look, and they can decide for themselves.
Well, you know, there we go. I've just figured out what is actually going to be on my headstone.
Yeah,
I'll write it into my grill.
I'll edit that section out.
Edit it out.
We can put this in there.
Yeah, because that's much more important.
Take all that meaningful stuff out, and we'll put this bit in.
Much more important to me. Get that QR code on there.
Go get your followers up.
Exactly.
Even after death, she's still getting followers.
She's more famous. A lot of people are more famous once they die. So maybe kill me and I'll be more famous with my QR code.
Yeah, well, I'd definitely be more valuable when I'm dead, like considering what my life insurance would pay out compared to what I've got to offer beforehand.
Shh, don't tell them that. They'll
And I
kill
can
you
hear
now.
the pitchforks coming up the stairs as we speak. When I had the idea of asking people to read out a letter on the podcast, it was like part of it was because I've listened to so many different podcasts on so many different subjects, and it's something I've never heard anyone ask a guest to do. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I'm sure there is a podcast somewhere in the world that does it, but I'd never heard it, had never seen it. So that was one reason. Second reason was because first person who I suggested it to said it's a great idea, but no one will bother doing it. So therefore you won't be able to get any guests on. So then there was like the little vindictive part of me was like, well, now I'm definitely going to do it because A, I want to sort of prove that it is possible, and B, like if people can't be asked to do it, then they don't. Fine, just don't come on. Like
It's a
I'll
little
get.
letter. It's not, you're not asking me to write an essay.
No, it doesn't. It could just be a couple of lines. But the third and the most important thing was because I sort of like it fascinates me to sort of just to hear about if someone, and again this comes back to like my own like insecurities or like finding who I am and stuff like that, or the things I recognize in other people. It fascinates me as to sort of like what do people have that's unsaid, whether that's to close friends and family members, whether it's dead relatives that you wish you could say something to, whether it's to yourself in the future and some words of comfort that you want to have for them, sort of like what is it like I think we all have something that's like left unsaid, and that then leads into regrets, like, oh, I never told my mum this, like I should have done, or I should have, my friend, I wish I told him that. And that then leads to the regrets, and the regrets then impact the way our outlook on life. And does it mean that we stay in these little boxes and we have all of these issues that have a knock-on effect to work, family, marriages, relationships, and stuff? And like, I'm sure it's all connected. So that's why I sort of like, even if people listen to this and they never come on as a guest, like I just think it's a good practice to sort of to hear other people opening up about those things, and if that causes one person to then make a phone call or to write a letter to themselves or to just have a chat with themselves, I think it will make a fucking difference to some people. I genuinely think it's a powerful thing. Before I hit record, you started even touching on things that had happened since you wrote that letter 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah, do you know, I think it was, at first I was like, what am I going to write? And then I think you've got to connect with who the person is you're writing to. So I really connected with this older version of myself. And I suddenly realized I'm still chasing in a way that I'm not really living my life. You know, I talked about having fun. I talked about living with faith. I still got more work to do in that kind of arena. And as I wrote it, I was thinking, is what I'm doing now building me to be that person I want to be in 10 years' time? And there were things that I thought, no, you know, you're still too serious. You're still trying to control too much. And I thought, so the past couple of days, I've just been said yes to a few more things. You know, and it's changed the way I've sort of, I also, it's not been about kind of, it's not about, on there I haven't written, it's about how many papers I write. It's about how many publications and all that I get. Absolutely none of that is in there. It's all about who I become. It's all about how I feel. So all the stuff that I'm thinking matters now doesn't really. Do you know? It's all about the person I become in the end. So it has changed. It's made me lighter. I'd say everyone to write a letter to their 10 years older, you know, go 10 years ahead and think, this is who I hope I am in those 10 years. I mean, still have goals, still have ambitions. I've got loads of really, you know, big goals, and that's brilliant to drive you. But don't forget to have the fun along the way and just have a look. Are you still, I think, are you on the, do you think you're going where you're going, but you're not really on the right road? You know, identify it now and turn yourself. And maybe do that every year and think, oh, I thought I was going that way. No, I'm not. Turn yourself. what can I do a little bit differently so that I am headed, you know, in the right direction. So I do think that's important.
Are your immediate short-term actions, do they match with your long-term aspirations?
Exactly.
And if they don't, change them.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're not just gonna change. Somebody else isn't going to come along and do it for you. Like, you can't just keep going around in the same circles. Well, let's do it for another 365 times this year, and then see if it's finally got a different outcome. Well, it probably won't have.
It won't have.
You will just now hopefully learn, having listened to this, you'll learn to be able to regret those things, but to make the changes that will change the outcomes.
Oh, I think they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I've done that so many times, and kind of like, I think, yeah, like I say, be driven. I'm very driven. I have lots of goals, but I'm too serious still. And there's things that I wrote, you know, when I said there, I just hope I've chilled out a little bit. Hope I've realised to breathe in more moments, you know, and to just feel free and to feel happy in my own skin, you know, and not trying to be someone who I think I should be. I think they're all lessons that I'm really embodying at the moment. But yeah, I do suggest everyone writes a letter to their older self. So if I do this in 10 years, I'll be writing to my 57-year-old self. Oh God, I'm only 60.
The face yoga, you'll be
oh God, please say it's worked. If not, I'll be like but then I would have figured it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Sophie, I appreciate your time so much, especially
my pleasure,
especially so early on a Sunday morning, and the fact that you've humoured me by doing your homework, agreeing to come on and share what are quite sort of intimate, personal and sort of sensitive things that I think too many people don't share often enough, or if they do, they probably share them in the wrong ways. And if anyone sort of listens to you talking so candidly about your I don't know, like your setbacks, the handbrake that's been on for large chunks of your life, and that how you're now starting to learn to release the handbrake and change things for the better. That there's some valuable lessons in there for a huge number of people. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. That couldn't have been better than I hoped.
Just thank you for having me on, and thank you for asking. I was really honoured to be asked. And kind of, yeah, it's kind of about what you give back and what you teach people, and that's I just hope someone takes even just one nugget from this and applies it to their own life, because then it has a ripple effect and affects the people around them, and they apply something in their life, you know, and that's how change happens. So yeah, just thank you, and my absolute pleasure.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you so much. And it's that time of the show where I have to announce that I'm bursting for a piss.
You've done well. You've lasted quite a while.
I have. I've done a couple of hours. I've had like 2 glasses of water in that time.
And you've not been disturbed by kids or an animal.
No. But I can hear quite a lot of commotion downstairs. So I'm
probably thinking, when will she shut up?
No, not at all.
When will she go?
No, I'm thinking, how long can I stay up here? And I'm out of the way for.
Just say it went on till 12.
Yeah, I've got a little nap now. Oh God, that girl, that weird girl wouldn't stop talking.
Well, blame me. I don't care.
No, you're all right. Sophie, it's been a pleasure. Great to chat to you. Pleasure. And I'm sure I'll probably, when I run out of volunteers and guests, then I'll probably have you back on for, I don't know, probably show 7 if I can get that many people.
You're gonna do fab. I know you are. I think it's a very real and raw and authentic show, and I think you'll do absolutely brilliant. I have full faith.
Excellent. I'm glad you do. I'm ready. I've fired. Now I just need to aim.
There we go. Just do it.
And that's not just when I go to the toilet in a minute.
I was just about to say that.
Cool. Sophie, I'll chat to you soon.
Chat to you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. As I said at the start, it was a brilliant conversation that I really enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it helps you to maybe reflect on your current actions, on how they can be tweaked and improved to help you to achieve lots of cool stuff in the future. So thank you very much. Please tell someone about it. I think there's a huge chunk of people that would benefit from hearing this sort of open, honest, raw, candid conversation. So tell them about it, and I will be forever grateful. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.